All right. Here we roll. Here we go. Now, don't, you see the 5 trials in front of you. Okay. Do not write them all down right now. We're going to take them one at a time. This is our roadmap for today. It might take us 10 minutes. It might take us 60. I don't know. But we're going to start with 1. We're going to turn to that Bible passage on the board and we're going to read it. And I might teach you there. And of course, as you know by now, you're accountable for all that. So you may want to take notes as we go. Don't write it all down at once. I'll emphasize which one we're on if you lose track, because that's the picture that'll be up. All right. So let's do this. Now, the first one is the most boring one. 18 verse 13. Well, I'll start with verse 12. So the band of soldiers, the tribune, and the Jewish guards seized Jesus. They bound him, tied him up, and brought him to Annas first. He was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, who was the high priest that year. It was Caiaphas who had counseled the Jews that it was better that one man should die rather than the people. Okay, I'm not going to get into Caiaphas said that earlier in the Gospel of John when the Jewish leaders were telling Caiaphas, the high priest, there's this preacher man, Jesus of Nazareth, and he's leading people astray. What should we do? Caiaphas said it would be better to kill him if he's leading so many people astray, because we don't want people to be cut off from God. The irony of that statement is that in killing Jesus, we're all going to have the true life of God in us. So there's an irony there. You don't need to pay attention. But just simply know that they brought him to Annas first, who is the father-in-law, close relative of the most important Jewish person out there, the high priest. As we're going to see, Annas doesn't have a clue what to do. He says, this is bigger than my pay grade to deal with this Jesus of Nazareth. And so he's going to send him directly to Caiaphas. I'm trying to see where that is. In the Gospel of John. Okay. Verse 19, the high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and his doctrine. Jesus answered him, I have spoken publicly to the world. I have always taught in a synagogue or in the temple area where all the Jews gather, and in secret I have said nothing. Why ask me? Ask those who heard me what I said to them. They know what I said. When he had said this, there was one of the temple guards standing there, struck Jesus and said, Is that the way you answer the high priest? Jesus answered him, If I have spoken wrongly, testify to the wrong. But if I have spoken rightly, why do you strike me? Then Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. So Annas was one of many high priests, but then there was one high priest that was selected every year to be in charge of all of them, and that's Caiaphas. So Annas, the father-in-law, sends him to the true highest high priest to deal with him, and we move on. But we're gonna have to change. We're gonna have to change gospels for this story. So, like I said, Annas is actually the most boring trial. Jesus is like, I've spoken openly, and then he's just gonna send him to Caiaphas. Caiaphas is the trial that some of you are familiar with. We're gonna read about the priest ripping his clothes and declaring blasphemy. So let's go to Mark 14. Mark 14, verse 53. It's barely on page 93. of the New Testament. They led Jesus away to the high priest, and all the chief priests and the elders and the scribes came together. So this is the strange hour of the night, but they wake up all the high priests, all the scribes, all the big people, like, hey, this is the moment. Why they're doing it at night is a little bit sketchy, but it's in the night. Peter followed Jesus at a distance to the high priest's courtyard and was seated with the guards, warming himself by the fire. The chief priests and the Sanhedrin kept trying to obtain testimony against Jesus in order to put him to death, but they found none. Many gave false witness against him, but their testimony did not agree. Some took the stand and testified falsely against him, alleging, "We heard him say, I will destroy the temple and made with hands, and within 3 days I will build another, not made with hands," which is just a strange accusation because it took decades and decades to build the temple, and Jesus says, I'll destroy this and rebuild it, a different one, in 3 days. So people are just saying, this man's clearly crazy. He's a lunatic. That's what they're accusing him of. Even so, their testimony did not agree. The high priest rose before the assembly. So there's all these different people that are contradicting each other. They don't have a good argument against why Jesus is dangerous to the public. The high priest, Caiaphas, rose before the assembly and questioned Jesus, saying, "Have you no answer? What are these men testifying against you?" But he, Jesus, was silent and answered nothing. Again, the high priest asked him and said to him, "Are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One?" So let's just cut to the chase. Are you claiming to be the Messiah, the one anointed and sent by God? And Jesus so far has been pretty quiet, but now he's ready to talk. Then Jesus answered, "I am, and you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of the power and coming with the clouds of heaven." Put a bookmark in this page in the Bible, okay? Could be the rosary on your desk, could be a pen. And we got to flip to Daniel 7, our old friend Daniel. Daniel. Okay. Daniel chapter 7, page 1050 of the Old Testament. 1050 of the Old Testament. We've been here before, but I want to reteach you because a lot of y'all missed it on your test. Verse 9, page 1050 Old Testament, Daniel chapter 7, verse 9. Daniel's having a vision. Verse 9, and as I watched, thrones were set up. The Ancient of Days took his throne. His clothing was white as snow, the hair on his head like pure wool. His throne was flames of fire, wheels of burning fire. A river of fire surged forth, flowing from where he sat, thousands upon thousands ministering to him. The court was convened. I watched from the first of the arrogant words which the horn spoke until the beast was slain. Verse 12. As for the other beasts, their dominion was taken away, but they were granted a prolongation of life for a time and a season. As the visions during the night continued, I saw coming with the clouds of heaven one like the Son of Man. When he reached the Ancient of Days on a throne and was presented before him, he received dominion, splendor, kingship. All nations, peoples, and tongues will serve him. You got your bookmark in the other passage? What did Jesus say before all of the Jewish leadership, declaring clearly, "I am, and you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of God, the Ancient of Days, the power, and coming on the clouds of heaven." Jesus is saying, I'm the one Daniel prophesied. It's a clear connection between the Son of Man, the throne of God, and the clouds of heaven. Jesus says, yeah, you questioned me right. How does Caiaphas respond? At that, the high priest tore his garments and said, "What further need have we of witnesses? You've heard the blasphemy. What do you think?" Now, time out there. Verse 63. He tore his garments, which was actually against the rules. These are holy priestly garments he's got, and he's ripping them. He's not supposed to do that. Bad Caiaphas. But in verse 63, the symbolism here is that this is the high priest, the head of the Jewish religion for at least this year. And when he rips his priestly garments, what he's saying is this old priesthood, the Old Testament, the Old Covenant is done. Now, he's not saying that. He's the high priest. But that's symbolically what's happening here. That he's saying that when he rips his garment, the old priesthood is done. Jesus is the new priest. I'll repeat that again. No, he's ripping his own. He's straight up flexing. Jesus is on trial. And you see it kind of here. I'll try to zoom in on this picture. Let me take the pen off. It's kind of weird, but it's the Bible. So there's Jesus. He's bound. You see his hands tied. This is Caiaphas. And Caiaphas says, "Are you the Messiah?" "I am, and you shall see me, the Son of Man, coming on the clouds of heaven." Rips his garment. Blasphemy. Blasphemy means, what a disgrace to God that you would consider yourself God. That you would consider you existing with God and being sent forth from God, like complete blasphemy. Just Caiaphas says, "I'm appalled." But the symbolism here in the Bible is that he's ripping / ending the Old Testament priesthood. There's no, they're losing their role. That's the symbolism. That's going to be significant because when we get next week, maybe, to Jesus dying or being crucified, he's going to have a garment that the soldiers are going to take off of him, and they're not going to rip it. They're going to keep it together. So we'll get to that. Okay, Caiaphas is ending the Old Testament priesthood symbolically when he rips his garment. It says, "Blasphemy, take him away. Take him to Pilate." Trial number 3. And in pretty much all the Gospels, you see Peter denying that he even knows Jesus at this point. I know, it's entertaining. And I know you're not trying to, but it's distracting. So I got a podium there if you want to stand up against it and lean into it. Thank you. All right. So we are done with 2 trials. Moving on to trial number 3. Now, here's the strange thing. What you're going to see through all this is the only people that want Jesus dead are the Jewish leadership. They see him as a threat and a disgrace. But the rule is, for whatever reason, I'm not qualified to say, they can't give him the death penalty. It's not lawful, they say, to Pilate. So they hand him over to Pilate, say, "Pilate, surely you can find some reason to kill him, execute him." And here we are, and Pilate's going to question him. And we're going to go back to the Gospel of John, chapter 18, to see what Pilate and Jesus talk about. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, chapter 18, verse 28 is on page 171 of the New Testament. All right. Then they brought Jesus from Caiaphas to the praetorium. It was morning. They themselves did not enter the praetorium. Let me give you a visual. Poor Jesus, who is captured here, eyes on the board, in Gethsemane. And then they bring him to Caiaphas' house, who's living in South Jerusalem. and then they're going to take him to Herod's palace. And we're not sure, I don't think, where his next trial is going to be. But Jesus is going to bounce around Jerusalem all up until he's got to carry his cross out to Golgotha. But, he's being beaten and abused this whole time, of course. All right. So what does Pilate have to say? They brought Jesus from Caiaphas to the praetorium. It was morning. They themselves did not enter the praetorium in order to not be defiled so that they could eat the Passover. A Jewish person was not supposed to enter into the house of a Gentile because they were dirty, they were unclean, and they wouldn't be able to celebrate the Passover feast that some of them had not completed yet. So that's what's going on there. So Pilate has to come out to them and said, "What charge do you bring against this man?" They answered and said to him, "If he were not a criminal, we would not have handed him over to you," which does not answer the question. Verse 31, at this, Pilate said to him, "Take him yourselves and judge him according to your law." The Jews answered him, "We do not have the right to execute anyone. So we want to kill him, but we can't. Because these are Pharisees. They follow the law. In order that the word of Jesus might be fulfilled, he said, indicating the kind of death he would die. Verse 33. So Pilate went back into the praetorium and summoned Jesus and said to him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" That's what people are saying. You're a king. You got a kingdom or something? You've been preaching about this kingdom of heaven? What's going on, Jesus? Jesus answered, "Do you say this on your own, or have others told you about me?" Jesus is looking him in the eye. You can count on that. And Jesus is saying, "Are you interested? Do you want to know if I'm really a king? Or are you just being governor right now?" Pilate answered, I'm not a Jew, am I? Your own nation and the chief priests handed you over to me. What have you done? Jesus answered, my kingdom does not belong to this world. If my kingdom did belong to this world, my attendants, aka angels, would be fighting, or maybe even the apostles there, would be fighting to keep me from being handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not here. I'll tell you the truth. Jesus is on trial before Pilate in all four Gospels, but only in the Gospel of John does John highlight the dialogue between Jesus and Pilate. And Jesus says, yeah, I am a king, but my kingdom is not of this world. Do I look like a king? Am I flexing like a king? Am I rolling in the dollar bills like a king? No. You're saying it's not of this world. You can't quite understand it, Pilate. And the reason why I chose to do John's trial with Pilate here is because we studied the kingdom and know that Jesus is referencing the kingdom as he dies. I'm dying for my kingdom, and I'm dying for a kingdom that you can't see with your eyes. It's not of this world. So this is why I'm highlighting John's account. And then Pilate, a little bit confused, understandably, verse 37 said, "Oh, then you are a king." Jesus answered, "You say I'm a king. For this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." Then there's this strange, awkward ending to the conversation. Pilate said to him, "What is truth? What can we really know?" When he said this, he again went out to the Jews and said to them, "I find no guilt in him." Pause. It's a strange conversation. Pilate is working for the Roman Empire. He's plenty well off. Jesus is not a threat. He's a reasonable guy. He's a little bit strange talking about this kingdom that you can't see with your eyes. So that's strange. But there's another trial that's going to happen that most of the gospel writers skip over except for Luke. And so Herod is going to try to get out of this situation because he doesn't want to kill Jesus. He really doesn't. But the Jewish people that he's governing are pressuring him that if you want to work with us, you got to kill him. So he's like, maybe I can just get out clean. Sends him to Herod. Luke chapter 23. Now, The Gospel of Luke is the only gospel that mentions this trial. We don't see this trial in any other gospel except Luke. And this trial is going to go similar to the trial with Pilate. Herod's going to question him. These questions are not going to get them anywhere. And Herod's not going to know what to do. Okay, so we're on page 138. On hearing this, chapter 23, verse 6. On hearing this, Pilate asked if the man was a Galilean. Jesus, you're from Galilee, Nazareth, right? Yeah, that's in Galilee. That's way up north. Okay, well, I can get out of this. And upon learning that he was under Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who was in Jerusalem at that time. Hey, your hometown, the governor's here. He can deal with you. I don't want to deal with you. Herod was very glad to see Jesus, which is weird. Okay, verse 8. Herod was very glad to see Jesus. He had been wanting to see him for a long time, for he had heard about him and was hoping to see him perform some sign. What did I teach you last chapter about miracles? Jesus does not perform them for people that want entertainment, that want to be razzle-dazzled, that want to be entertained. And Herod's like, ooh, I hear this guy can open the eyes of the blind. I want to see it. I want to see it. So yeah, bring him here. So Herod's kind of a not too intelligent fellow, not anywhere close to Jesus. And Jesus knows that because he's Jesus. All right. Now, verse 9. Herod questioned Jesus at length, but he gave him no answer. Jesus doesn't say a single word this entire trial. Chief priests and scribes, meanwhile, stood by, accusing him harshly. Verse 11, even Herod and his soldiers treated him contemptuously and mocked him, and after clothing him in garb, sent him back to Pilate. So after it's like, oh yeah, come on, Jesus, perform a miracle. And Jesus is like, silent. He's like, I'm not playing this game. We've got nothing to talk about, you and me, Herod. It's basically what Jesus is saying. So Herod's like, be like, oh, you're too cool. And they just mock him. They dress him up in clothes. It's like, send him back to Pilate. I'm not dealing with him. Once again, there's nothing guilty found in Jesus from a civil standpoint. So they send him back to Pilate. And Pilate's not going to be happy about that. So let's go to our last trial with the Sanhedrin. Luke. Okay, I didn't put the chapter there. Typo on my part, but Luke chapter 23. We can stay in the same gospel. Yay. Verse 12. Herod and Pilate became friends that very day, even though they had been enemies formerly. They were rivals. They had to work together, but they didn't like each other. But it's a fascinating item that Jesus brings these two sinful pagans together. And they bond because they both have to admit that this man is a pretty meek, harmless individual. And so they are able to unite over Jesus. There's an interesting line there, verse 12. Verse 13. Pilate then summoned the chief priests, the rulers, and the people. Now, that's what we call the Sanhedrin, the official Jewish leadership. So when Pilate finds out he's coming back, oh crap. All right, get all the Jewish leadership together. Get the Sanhedrin together. We need to talk. I don't know what to do is what Pilate is saying with that. Verse 14, and he said to them, you brought this man to me and accused him of inciting the people to revolt. I have conducted my investigation in your presence and have not found this man guilty of the charges you have brought against him. Nor did Herod, for he sent him back to us. So no capital crime has been committed by him. Therefore I shall have him flogged and released him. Flogged meaning scourged at the pillar. He's going to get 40 lashes and I'm going to send him out. Okay? The Jewish people aren't going to be very happy about that. But altogether they shouted, "Away with this man, release Barabbas." I don't know if Barabbas is in this picture, but I want you to know who Barabbas is. This is Pilate talking to the Jewish leaders about Jesus. Barabbas. Now this is just this shows you human nature right here. I'm writing Barabbas on the board. Bar means son. Abba, anybody know what Abba means? Very good, father. Who is this Barabbas? His name means son of the father. And isn't that what Jesus is claiming to be? He's claiming to be the son of the Father in heaven. Barabbas' name just means son of the Father. But who is this Barabbas? Verse 19 tells you who Barabbas is. Now Barabbas had been imprisoned for a rebellion that had taken place in the city for murder. So he had two accounts. He's starting a rebellion and he killed somebody. And the Jewish leadership says, yeah, give us Barabbas. We like him. He doesn't like you, Romans. And Herod's trying to get them like, you wouldn't want Barabbas. He's a nasty, nasty, ugly guy. You're going to want a murderer over Jesus, this meek dude that doesn't even have an army or a weapon? And they're going to say, yeah. So you see the lack of logic, perhaps. Verse 20, again, Pilate addressed them, still wishing to release Jesus. They continued their shouting, crucify him, crucify him. Pilate addressed them a third time. What evil has this man done? I found him guilty of no capital crime. Therefore, I shall have him flogged and released to him. With loud shouts, however, they persisted in calling for his crucifixion, and their voices prevailed. Pilate got peer pressured into it. The verdict of Pilate was that their demand shall be granted. So he released the man who had been imprisoned for rebellion and murder, for whom they asked. Excuse me. For whom they asked, and he handed Jesus over to them to deal with them as he wished. Crucify him, crucify him, crucify him. Excuse me. Thank you. And that's the verdict. That's your speed version. Now, this probably happened between early in the hours. I mean, this could be, I don't know, 2, 3 a.m. all the way through early the next morning. You know, Jesus is moving around Jerusalem from Annas to Caiaphas to Pilate to Herod, back to Pilate. Trial with the Sanhedrin. Thank you. And he goes out and he carries his cross. He's going to die. What's he guilty of? What is Jesus being killed for? This is very important. Blasphemy. Why do they call it blasphemy? Because Jesus said what? He's the Son of God. I am the Son of Man, the Son of God. I am equal to the Father in heaven. I will sit at his right hand, and you will see me on power coming on the clouds. You know, we saw in the garden, Jesus said, I am, you know, and that has power. He's equating himself with Yahweh. It's important that you know, Jesus, the only crime Jesus did was declare himself to be the Messiah. That's his crime. That's what he's being put to death for. The Messiah that he claimed to be is not the Messiah the Sanhedrin were expecting or looking for or wanting. But after 5 trials, that's the only thing he's guilty of. Okay? One last passage for the day. We assume so, yeah. Well, there's 2 other people that are going to be crucified with Jesus. So Pilate probably was in charge of giving them the death penalty too. They were convicted thieves and robbers. The Bible basically suggests he just murdered one person and was imprisoned for it. We don't know anything else of once he was released. Sophia, then Cohen. The Sanhedrin? You're asking what is it? It's a good question. Okay, so Herod sends him back to Pilate. Yes, this is a trial with Pilate, but Pilate is turning to the Sanhedrin, the Jewish leadership, saying, What do you want from me? What am I supposed to kill this man for? And they're just like, just kill him because we want you to. Peer pressure, basically. He claimed himself to be a king. That's the best thing they could come up with. So Pilate's like, okay, so you're a king. And Jesus is like, not in this world, you know. And Pilate's like, tough to kill, man, for saying that he's king of a world that he can't see, you know. So Pilate doesn't want to do it, but Pilate shifts all the authority to the Sanhedrin. So that's why you might call this the trial before the Sanhedrin, because the Sanhedrin at this point is calling the shots. Cohen.
Was Herod the same person that tried to either kill or take Jesus when he was a baby?
Great question. I had initially thought that too, but two different Herods. The Herod that was trying to kill baby Jesus died soon thereafter. And soon thereafter, now that's another thing. Let's turn to the pin board here. Remember, Herod is the king of what region? Galilee, this northern region where Nazareth is. Yeah, there's Nazareth. Okay, we're down here in Jerusalem. And so Pilate is in charge of, from the Roman standpoint, of Jerusalem. There's, of course, strong Jewish leadership as well, as this is where the temple is. But the Herod he's coming down from Galilee to Jerusalem for the Passover because it's party time of the year. It's kind of like going down to New Orleans for Mardi Gras, you know. So, not quite as much sin going on though. Hopefully, so he comes down here. But when Jesus is born in Bethlehem here, there was another Herod that was in charge of this region, and then they escaped to Egypt, as you know. So, good question, Cohen. Two different Herods. One was in charge of Galilee. The other was in charge of the Jerusalem region. Very good. Any other questions on the trials? Haley.
With Pilate, because he gave into peer pressure, was he to blame for Jesus' death, or what happened?
That's a moral question.
And is he going to be blamed Jesus' blood on his hands, or is it on the hands of the Sanhedrin?
He didn't want to kill him at all. All the above is a good answer. But the sad part is, it's only semi-sad, but we pray the Apostles' Creed. When we pray the Rosary, when we pray the Divine Mercy Chaplet, I believe in Jesus Christ, the only begotten Son of God. What's that line? He was crucified under Pontius Pilate. I'm pretty sure Pilate's the only human person named in the entire Apostles' Creed. And he's responsible for killing Jesus, yes. For example, let's pretend you're babysitting some family, all right? And 3 kids. Okay. Here's a story that I'm going to just throw off and put it on YouTube. This actually happened. I'm growing up in my house. I'm probably 7, 8, 9 years old. My parents are gone doing something. We've got a babysitter, nice babysitter. She didn't play too much with us. She wasn't too engaging, but she was a nice girl. I don't have a problem with her. Well, my oldest sister gets all of us kids together. 6 kids. It might have been 7. I've got 6 sisters, but I'm not sure if my youngest was born yet. And the neighbors. And they say, everybody go get stones. We're going to stone her. And I was like, okay. Is this the game? We often put on plays like kids do. And so I was like, all right. That was the kind of kid I was like, okay, stone her. So what did we do? We waited till she walked across the basketball court where there was cement. And there was a wall behind her. And we all line up like a gang. And I'll never forget this because I was so puzzled as far as why we were doing this. And my older sister says, now! Whoosh, now! What I would find out later is that Christine meant it to be a joke and we were supposed to hold on to the rocks and pretend to stone her. I didn't get that memo. I threw the rocks. And this poor babysitter was rightly horrified. Horrified. Appalled. I think she hid in the house, locked the doors. We stayed outside. Parents came home. I'll never forget that babysitter leaving that house. She was like so angry, and my parents were like, "Oh, sorry, we were good kids, I promise. It was just a bad day, you know." Who's responsible for the stoning of Mr. Peo's babysitter?
You.
My oldest sister. and me. And me. I threw the rocks. I didn't know it was supposed to be a joke. But my sister is Pilot. How, like I said, I was the third kid, and I was in the range of somewhere probably between 6 and 9, you know. And then, listen, I had 6 sisters, and the neighborhood's full of girls. I didn't have anybody to play with, you know. There's nobody to play basketball or baseball with, so I just had to do these weird things that my sisters did, like play. I was like, maybe she deserves this. I don't know. You're a kid. So, okay. So Haley asks, who's guilty? Well, I'm guilty. My sister's guilty. Everybody's different level guilty. But Pilate is guilty. And to get into a moral standpoint for y'all are going to be in these situations. The older you get, the bigger jobs you're going to get. And one day your boss is going to say, go ahead and do this. And your boss is going to tell you to do something that's a sin. And you're responsible. And your boss is responsible. This moral teaching is what a lot of high schoolers don't like. And I know because I taught morality for the past 6 years. And you tell a high schooler that when you help somebody sin, that's a sin. They don't like that, you know? And so that's what happens. There's a lot of people guilty for the death of Jesus. Sanhedrin's guilty. The high priest is guilty. Pilate's guilty. Judas, an apostle, is guilty. Everybody's guilty. We all killed Jesus. We all sinned. Because we know, apart from the legal aspect that I'm emphasizing in this slide, he had to die for our sins. There's more questions out there?
You just said that like Pilate was responsible for Jesus' death, but then you also just said that he passed the authority over to Sanhedrin.
Yes, but okay, he passed it over, meaning like Sanhedrin, like, can we negotiate? Is there another way out? He has the power to set Jesus free, but he's choosing not to use it. But in choosing to hand it to the Sanhedrin, he's guilty because he should be protecting Jesus. He doesn't care enough to protect. Because you might say the Sanhedrin's more guilty. But at the end of the day, Pilate, as we just read in the Bible, Pilate gave the order, just crucify him. And there, in another gospel passage, Pilate literally washes his hands. He says, I'm not guilty. I'm not guilty. I wash my hands. The Sanhedrin's crucifying him. The Sanhedrin said, we can't crucify him. It's against the law for us to kill anybody. So who's guilty? It's funny because part of this story that I did not teach, I can't teach everything, there's a lot, is Pilate's wife. Anybody know anything about Pilate's wife?
She had a dream.
She had a dream.
That like they shouldn't kill Jesus or something.
The night before, she said, Pilate, hubby, I had this dream, and this man is completely innocent. He's actually like anointed by their God. Like, don't kill him. So Pilate is worried about the divine ramifications. If he kills this holy man, his wife has this dream that he's innocent. So he's being pressured from his wife. He's being pressured from the people he's ruling. This is why you shouldn't run for office. That's the moral of the story, you know? Yeah, it's hard to be in power. It's hard to have this authority. Now, we all know what Pilate should have done. Told the Sanhedrin, that's not a legit crime. He's not a threat to the peace. Everybody go home. But he didn't have the strength to do that. And I don't know. We don't know anything else. We know historically Pilate was a real person, and he was a strict, hardcore governor of Jerusalem. We don't know what happened to his marriage after this day, though. You know, that's it. I mean, he's sent off to be crucified. There's one last note I want to end the day on, but I'll take any other questions, of course, that you have. Mark chapter 15. Verse 23. Well, let's start at verse 21. They make a cross for him to carry out. Chapter 15, verse 21. They pressed into service a passerby, Simon the Cyrenian, or you've heard it, Simon of Cyrene, who was coming in from the country, the father of Alexander and Rufus, to carry his cross. So Simon didn't want to, but they say, hey, this man's too weak to carry this cross all the way up the hill of Golgotha. So help us out. Verse 22, they brought him to the place of Golgotha, which is translated the place of the skull. So they're at his death. It's almost weird. These Roman soldiers, I know you see them at the Passion Play like being Jesus and being harsh, and they probably were. But there's moments where they have compassion on Jesus. Like they got somebody else to carry the cross. And what are they going to do next? They gave him wine drugged with myrrh. What is that? That is a natural pain med. It's a low grade opioid. They're going to give him like a little pain relief, a little bit to drink, a little bit of wine. Like they're having a little bit of mercy on him. It's almost like these soldiers are experiencing like this man's kind of innocent. This is not a violent man. They know it.
Is that like what's it called? I can't think of what it's called. From when they gave Jesus gold, frankincense, and myrrh.
Yeah. Yeah, you wonder. I'd have to think more about that. What's the connection? Myrrh, and Mary Magdalene is going to use myrrh to go to anoint the body of Jesus. It was an oil. It was a special oil that would heal and anoint. Why they put it in wine, I don't know. But if you want to research this, you got bonus points coming your way. Okay, email me what you find about why somebody would drink myrrh. I think it was a pain relief, but I can't speak authoritatively about that. That's not the important part. The important part is that they offered him wine, and what did he do? He didn't take it. He ain't drinking. He ain't drinking wine. He's not drinking that fourth cup until he enters the kingdom. You see the strength of Jesus. He's being tortured to death. They're offering him wine, a little bit of relief in his mouth, a little bit of relief maybe from some pain. He says, nope, not drinking. Then they crucified him, and they divided his garments by casting lots to see what he should take. It was 9 o'clock in the morning when they crucified him. And we're going to go more into his crucifixion next class. Y'all did great today. Thank you.